I guess, but he's new. So.
Explain our service to you in just a moment. We're going to do a few things a little different. And let me just welcome you again. We're glad that you're here at Crosspoint. If this is your first Sunday, this is our first panel discussion ever. And so we don't do this normally. And we will get back to our marriage series. This is a part of it. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the 4 rules of communication. Every marriage ends up saying we are divorcing because we can't talk, we can't communicate, and that's usually not the root problem, but that's always where it ends up. So we're going to talk about that next week. And then the week after, we're going to talk about the subject that has never been hardly talked about in the church in the past, and that is sex. And since God invented it, and it's all over the Bible, we're going to talk about that from God's perspective, okay? And you're going to hear a little bit about that today. So if you have children in here, they're going to hear a little bit about the word sex, and it's going to be within the context of marriage. And if you're here and you're single, we want you to know we believe that sex ought to be, you ought to enjoy it once you get married. And that's where God wants us to exercise it. So, a couple things we want to do. Let me use your mic. I want to introduce to you, by way of announcements before we get started, a lady who is running for the school board. And America has changed drastically in the last 10 years, and we hardly recognize some of the moral shifts that have taken place. We've seen this in our schools where they're teaching critical race theory and teaching boys to be girls and girls boys and all kinds of things that the Bible clearly speaks against. And the reason for that is because the school boards are being controlled by people that do not have a biblical worldview and are chasing after the progressive route. And so, you know, if you want to get something done, just make some women mad. And that's what's happened with the school board situation in America. And so I'm thankful for a mother who is ready to go fight. And I want you to understand, going into the political realm is a very hard thing. It's easy here. It's not so easy when you're maybe one of the only person on the school board or a city board that believes the way you do. And so we must be salt and light in the community. So Amy's going to introduce herself to you and tell you a little bit about her campaign.
Good morning. My name's Amy Livesay, and I am running for school board. I just wanted to kind of put some urgency to this. The election's on May 3rd, but you'll get a mail ballot before then. But I think in America, we always kind of have this thought that things will kind of work out if not everybody gets elected, the next time it'll be okay. But we're really at a critical point. Our schools, I think, that can be turned, but we've got to do the work, and it would really be great if we could do it this time. We have 5 conservative Christians running, and we're busy recruiting our 6th, hopefully. And if we get the 6th spot, then we can make a big difference.
Amen.
So if you're running for school board as well, Mike's in the back. He's running in the Hellgate district. He's already been on there in the fight, if you don't know him. So if you're in the Hellgate district, you can vote for him. Is Karen or Taylor here? No? Okay. Karen Sherman's running in the Lolo district. Taylor's running in the Bonner Target Range district. And there's another gal named Jill running in the general district that I'm running in. So I want to tell you, I'm a homeschool mom. So my kids are on this lovely little lifeboat. They don't get taught all the things. I have the privilege to do that. But if you have kids in the public school, will you stand up? So I've talked to some of these people. Some of them like where they're at. Some of them don't like where they're at. You can go ahead and sit back down. But these kids matter too. And they deserve the best, just like my kids do. And I'm not going to sit on my little lifeboat and watch their kids drown. And so we are all part of that, right?
Amen.
That we all should be working on this like our lives depend on it, because these people will be the future leaders of the world, right? The masses are in the public schools, so we can't just wash our hands. So I just want to say a couple things. One, all the candidates, I've never run before, so I'm not shaming anybody because I probably didn't do much of this either. We do need money. And I don't need $100, $10, $5, $20. And I'm sure Mike needs it. I'm sure Karen needs it. I'm sure Taylor, Jill, we all need it to buy signs, to do all the things we're doing. And it tells us also, I said in the first service, I have like 10 donors. Now after the first service, I have more. But when you give us $5 or $10, it says that you are coming with us. You are supporting us. And we don't need a lot, just a little. So if you can give to anyone, please do. Next week, my husband will be here and he'll have yard signs. So if you live in the general district or on a busy road, you can take those and put those out. And all the candidates probably will have those. And then the last thing I'll say is we'll be kind of pushing this out more as we go. But I bet all of you know 10 people that you could contact and ask for a vote. And if everybody contacted 10 people, because school board's really not that contentious on the surface level. We all care about kids. We want the education to be better. We don't want the teachers to be stressed out. It's pretty simple. So if you just endorse us, the vote is not that hard to get. And we just need the vote. Not many people usually turn out. So anyway, thank you for letting me come up here, and we appreciate it. I won't be here at the end of the service, so I'm gonna leave a stack of these cards out by the info booth, so you can donate online, or tomorrow night, 4 of the candidates will be here for the Western Liberty Coalition. So if you're gonna be here then, you can donate or get information from any of them then.
Good, good.
Are we starting? He's not.
So, want to plug the seminar that's taking place on Friday and Saturday. It's the personality profile that we're doing. It's one of the best things you can do personally for your life. Also, it will help your marriage be able to communicate much better. And so, we already have 85 people signed up. I don't know if we only have 5 more spaces. So if you have paid, great. If you have not, please do that today if you can. It's $20 per person for the book, and we will have a great time. Friday night, Saturday, we'll have plenty of snacks and food here, and so we'll have a great time. Second, I want to remind you that one of the things that goes along with this talk today. We're in a series of marriage. We were addressing the kind of the wives and your responsibility. And this book really helps wives understand what men want or need, and really understand how they think. And men are commanded in Scripture to understand their wives, and women are the same thing. Many times women just don't. They're frustrated because they don't understand. And so this book will really help you with that. $15, I would encourage you to do that. And that is what the panel discussion is about. I saw this done on YouTube, and I thought, well, hey, if it's done on YouTube, we can do it, right? And so I asked these 4 gentlemen to participate, and asked my wife to ask the questions. And so they're going to, there you go. Yeah. So this is going to be different, and I want you to just enjoy the time. But you're going to hear, I think, some things that will really confirm some truths in your life and in your marriage, and I hope it will help you as we talk about these subjects in this format. Okay? All right. Take it away.
Okay, guys, take 2. Here we go. So first, I'd like you all to introduce yourself, say how long you've been married, and what your profession is.
My name's Adam Velarde. Been married to my wife, Amber, who works in the children's ministry for 18 years, and we've been dating for 22 years. And yes, husbands, you should still date your wife. And I run a small restaurant chain called the Montana Club. Been with them for 22 years, and just recently started working for a Christian organization called Thrivent Financial, being a financial advisor for them.
Good morning, Crosspoint Church family. It's good to see you guys out. My name is Jake Parker. I have successfully navigated the waters of marriage for 15 days. So I want you to pay attention. I've got some important things to say today. Okay? I have a couple of different professions. In the morning, I get to work at the Ranch Club. I'm one of their newest pros out there. I absolutely, every time I see a golf ball, I just want to do mean things to it. In the afternoons, for the last 19 years, I've run a taekwondo school with an after-school program where we pick up from all of these terrible schools, bring them to the taekwondo facility, and we get their homework done, we get them a snack, and then I kick them around for about an hour before parents pick them up and take them home. So very blessed to have both of those things to do in my day.
My name is Joe Sukanik, and I'm a marriage and family therapist. Thank you, Jake. And so I have been married for 11 years.
My name is John Kirkheide. My wife Jennifer was in the first service, but she's put up with me, and we've been married for 31 years. I'm a physician, actually recently retired as an anesthesiologist just a few weeks ago.
Okay, great. So we'll start with the first question. So we know that women like communication, right? So we as women want to know, why is it so hard to get men to talk? For women, part of intimacy is sharing how you feel. So why is it hard to get men to talk about their feelings? And we'll start with Joe.
And it starts. No, I think it's not about that we don't want to talk. We really do. It's just we want to talk about things that are in a way that we can do it, right? So for me, I talk all day with marriage and family therapy. And so I don't want to come home and talk. I don't necessarily want to do those things, but I will when things are in a place where I can, right? If we are just sitting around talking or sitting around and watching a movie, I can talk then because everything is kind of settled. It's really, really important for timing to be respected so that I can actually then open up. And I may not open up the way she wants, but I will open up.
Okay, somebody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that this is kind of a news flash, but guys typically don't go hang out together and talk about their feelings. That is not something that we do. We talk about sports, we talk about guns, we talk about hunting, but we're not sharing our feelings in that sense real often and easily. But I think that we do want to open up and share our feelings. And to Joe's point, I think it's about the right space and the right timing. And we're not going to open up typically at the dinner table, even with our kids necessarily, or other friends, but maybe in the right setting. And an example of that, I guess, would be, I think if guys if they're out walking or going on a hike, guys really value, I would say, that friendship, that shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. Jake and I were going on a walk together, and we would be doing something, and we would probably open up a little more. And that's true with our wives. But if we just sit down at the dinner table and we're just looking face to face, that's intimidating for guys. I think that's a struggle for guys to just, an example of that too is, my nephew lived with us for a while. He's outnumbered because I have 3 daughters and a niece. And, so he had no chance in our house getting away with anything. And so, I'd see he's having a rough day, and I'd say, hey, you want to talk about your feelings? He's never going to talk about his feelings. but he knew that I cared about him, and so it was kind of an ongoing joke that we had in our house.
John?
Just to kind of follow up on what these guys were saying, there's a couple of things that generally don't go well. Most guys are control guys. They're calculated. They like to do things sequentially. And so, the intro phrase, we need to talk, is like a no-go starter. Because immediately, I think just through operant conditioning over the years, most guys are like, we need to talk means I did something wrong. I'm in the doghouse. Okay, now I need to quickly figure out from A to Z what that is, figure out what my response is going to be in this short time frame. So generally, like, to follow up what these guys were saying, if there can be a, hey, you know what, maybe we could talk at some time where you can at least get your head wrapped around the game before you're just caught spontaneously.
Okay, good. Jake?
I thought about this question as you asked it in the first service, and in the second service, it started to kind of dawn on me. Sometimes when we hear that we need to talk, and the question is framed with, and is it hard for us to talk about our feelings? The answer is no, it's not hard for us to talk about our feelings. However, sometimes when I've heard we need to talk, she's actually saying, I just want to talk and I just want you to listen.
Good.
Well, 15
Glad
days.
you're getting
15 days. I think I got it knocked out, right? Yeah. What else you got, right?
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. But that I've got to follow up and say that that's really difficult for guys. We are fixers, right? If I hear we need to talk and then you want me to listen, I'm listening to all the things I got to fix. And where am I going to prioritize those? And sometimes my priorities, where it's at on the list is lower than where it's at on her list. And so, boy, 31 years, 34 years?
31.
Way to go. Way to go.
My wife's very tolerant.
No, I think you mentioned one thing that is really important is that part where we're really talking about not only the timing, but that technique of it, right? Is saying that magic word of we need to talk. That's like ringing the fight bell. It's like, ding, let's go, right? So it's one of those things that really is important, that my priorities may not be the same as your priorities. And so when you're talking to me and you're saying we need to do this, this, and this, I may have 10 other things that come before that. And if we're respectful and trying to team up and figure out what we need to go with, I think that's going to be really important for marriages to see.
Okay, great. So number 2, how important is a man's ego or masculinity? And can you explain to women how showing respect and compliments help your ego? And we're going to start with John.
Okay. Kind of to start out, a guy's masculinity and his ego are completely, intertwined. You can't separate them regardless of how much you try. For most of us, and I'll speak, to myself, we were, since we were little kids, we were raised, old school. My dad was in the World War II, 17 years old, flew in a B-17 bomber over, Europe, and his big thing, you need to command respect, and everything you do from day one, whether it be sports, school, your eventual job, a guy is always looking, for respect from his peers or his colleagues, and you really kind of get tired of it. And after a while, when you get home, you want a break. And what you do is you look for your spouse is, for some affirmation in what you do, maybe a little bit. And you certainly look for respect, and you don't really feel like you have to earn it at home. You do need to earn it, but you should not always be, underneath, the microscope. And just to sort of, put it, it's so important to men that if they don't get respect from their wives and from their families, they're going to get it somewhere else. Whether it be, if they don't get it from you, they're going to go hang out with the guys at the gym, say, wow, you can really lift a lot of weights, or you can really hit a golf ball, or you're a great hunter, or whatnot. So it is extremely important that men get that at home.
Very good. Anyone else want to add to that?
Go ahead.
I agree.
Spoken like a man.
You're just trying to get ahead to the question you
awesome.
want.
What's that?
I said you're just trying to get ahead to the question you want.
No. Yeah, I think that to say that guys' egos in masculinity doesn't matter is not true. Definitely, it does matter, and we are, like John is saying, want that respect, either from our peers or from our wives. And and not in a very authentic way, not not being fake or anything like that. But yeah, it matters.
I think that there are two outcomes, two effects that and I think men, when we feel respected and we feel heard, right, and we feel like we're in that leadership role, there are two effects. One is that we just feel great and we feel in command and we feel like every choice that we have made as a spiritual leader or as a servant leader in our family is right on line and it's headed in a great direction. That's one effect. There's an absolute opposite effect of that when that disrespect or when that masculinity or that ego, right, isn't being fed the way that we'd like it to be fed at home. And that is that we start questioning every single choice and decision that we've made that we think we're always heading in a good direction. And that starts to put a spotlight on these choices that we've made. And that's difficult sometimes because we then have to go back and analyze all those things and then put them back in their place just so we can move forward. So it's a very important thing that husbands and wives are mutually earning respect without the microscope. I get that idea. But earning respect is something that, I'm not going to command it from my wife more than I want to earn it and know that it is absolutely authentic and genuine and real.
It's great. Joe?
Yeah, I totally want to echo all the guys here. One of the things that runs through my mind all the time when we talk about the ego and the accomplishments and how that's tied together is I kind of liken it to, if I'm going out and emptying out the trunk of groceries, right, for my wife, right, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, babe, like you grabbed like 4 or 5 bags. That's awesome. Can you get that? You all right?" And then all of a sudden I'm grabbing 2, 3 more, right? But as soon as she says, "You can't do that," I'm kicking it over to my son and say, "Carry the bag, man. I got it. Keep going."
Okay, great. So the next question, how important is it for women to be interested in a man's job or his hobbies? How important is that to you guys? And we'll start with Jake.
What I have decided to do with my life isn't just something that affects me. I mean, it affects quality of life. It affects things that we want, goals that we have. Speaking as far as professions, it's very important that Alicia is proud of the things that I'm doing in life, and that they fall in line with our purposes and our priorities and our values. Those absolutely paramount to have those, right? As far as the hobbies, the extracurricular activities that you do, just as important. Mm-hmm. Having my partner with me in the woods when we go hunting brings us together. This is where we start talking about our feelings a lot. Quietly, though, so that animals don't hear us.
or other men.
or other men. Thank you so much.
The man card.
But I think, these are all steps, and I think that's going to get talked about today. These are all steps that keep us connected. And that is really the big skill we want to continue to develop in our marriage, is not reconnecting, not that being the bigger skill. The bigger skill we want is to stay connected. So, hobbies? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think all I heard from that was you wanted to get alone with Alicia in the woods.
Somehow I think you hear what you want to hear. 15 days, huh? Not bad.
One thing that Jake said that I think is so true, guys find a lot of purpose in what they do. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's work or hobbies that, they want to be good at something. And so, if your wife is interested in either how you're doing in that hobby or how you're doing at work, I mean, it reaffirms us, that you care about what's important to me, and that, and obviously guys are wired to provide and protect, but, we find a lot of identity in our purpose and what we're doing. Most of the time when you talk to, hey, what do you do? What do you do for work? It's, because we're kind of interested in that. And so, yeah, it kind of motivates us, I think, to know that our wives are, caring and want to know about that as we go through.
Right.
Yeah, I think that to kind of just add on to what you're saying, we talked about expressing feelings earlier, and how guys are kind of sequential controlled guys. It's a lot easier, I think, for guys to talk about things emotionally when they're doing something, especially something that they enjoy doing. I like to shoot, and my wife likes to shoot with me. And when she asks a loaded question, it gives us time to think. You know, wait a minute, I got to reload this mag while I'm trying to figure out the answer to her emotional question. So I think it is a time, certainly for me, when I can open up a whole lot easier, when I can, take time and think about things, and that's a really good time to do that.
Good.
I would also say that I think it's, Jake talked about this obviously, but it's motivating and kind of energizes us when our wives want to do those kind of hobbies with us, like Dr. John is saying, that's somewhat of intimate time in a guy's mind, it's not sitting on the couch watching a chick flick, but reloading a gun. Oh man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. No, I think for me is, I was thinking about this in between services, and that the interest in the hobbies and things. Like, I love football. I love college football. I love everything about it. And so my wife loves it too, but she wasn't quite as into it. Like, I'm Saturday, I'm like, shit. And so she then began to just sit on the bed or sit on the couch next to me and watch. And then would ask questions, not like a lot of questions, but like, because, that can get kind of,
Thankful for that.
a little annoying, right? Not those a lot, but just learning questions and wanting to connect. And so by halftime, I'm like, babe, I love you. Like, I really, really love you right now. Really love you. And so it was this connection. So as she draws interest into my world, I want to then move closer to her.
Okay, great. So we've been talking before about why respect is so important to each of you. So what ways do you feel like that women can really show you respect? Like things that matter to you and how they do that? Oh, and that one we are going to start with Joe.
Oh, okay. I missed the cue. One of the big things that are respectful, that show respect for me, is after a long day of work and I'm hammering out marriage problems and family issues and all these other things. But when I come home and all of a sudden I hang up my keys and all of a sudden my wife draws close to me and she gives me a hug and she gives me a kiss and she's like, I'm so glad to see you. And I know she's dealing with homeschool stuff and behaviors and doctor's appointments and everything, but it set me up to be, when I walked in, I was important, I was needed, I was there, and that showed respect, not only for me as the husband, but as her lover.
Great. Anybody else want to add?
I can follow on with maybe a don't.
Okay.
Let's hear the
Easy,
Well, okay.
easy, John, easy.
We were talking about how important respect is to a guy. Probably one of the most woundful, hurtful things that a spouse can do in public is to disrespect their husband around a group of people. You're out in a conversation. I wish my husband he's the only one who doesn't do this, or I just wish my husband could. And those are really, really woundful type statements that really gets to a guy's heart. He may not show it, but that's really almost off limits.
Yeah, and I would piggyback on that and say that, again, talking about, I guess, disrespect, is the whole comparison. If a guy gets compared to another guy, or your wife compares your marriage or relationship to somebody else's marriage, and on top of that, doing it in public, but even in private, kind of goes back to the hitting our ego. And most guys, I don't know, I'm not speaking for everybody here, but will retreat. They're going to back up and disconnect, really, and go, wow, that was. It's that I think kind of wounds us in a way that we want to disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, to answer that first part of the question, what can wives do? What would be important to husbands? I like that we have a do and a don't list, and I think I want to comment on the do that, there are things that we as men, John talked about it earlier, that we are logical creatures, that we think about these things. I really appreciate it when she listens to me, knowing that I have researched every little detail of whatever choice we're going to make. That is a wonderful way. Another way is that it isn't that I just want her to listen. I'm also explaining ways that I like her to get involved, right? And I like, sometimes it's a project, sometimes it's, a purchase, but either way, to roll up your sleeves and get involved with me is a great way. The don't list, I think all of us can identify the techniques that sometimes get used, or the phrases that gets used. And one of the phrases is, I'll say something and then I hear, oh, so what you're really saying, and we are too logical for that, trickery. we go, no, I would have said that if I meant it, and it takes us off in another direction. As we communicate, as men communicate, we like to stay right on this straight line and asking a question, and as we are beginning to answer that question gets hijacked. It gets interrupted in the middle of it before we've had a chance to actually answer it. So now we're left wondering, and that's part of that disrespect. We're left wondering, well, did you really want the answer to that question, or do you want the answer to the second question? Because I'm still thinking of both, I'm still juggling 17 balloons in this conversation, hoping one doesn't hit the ground. So there is a do list and a don't want list, and I think all of them are very simple. As men, I know this is going to seem mind-blowing, we're very simple creatures. All right, it's out there.
I would add on to that a little bit too, in the respect factor. As leaders of the home, I think men sometimes come up with some wild ideas, whether it's hobbies, or whether it's the way you lead your family, or next purchase, whatever. And a lot of times,
they're not wild to me. That makes total sense to me. What are you saying, bro?
A lot of times we want to share those dreams, those thoughts, those ideas. And it feels very disrespectful, I think, if our wives just shoot that down right away. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say wives should be asking clarifying questions. That's
not too many, though.
Great, but to let us dream a little, let us kind of think through, and kind of have those thoughts. My wife and I have had that conversation a lot, and I'll come up with some off-the-wall thoughts, and I'm just saying, just dream with me a little bit here. And what I'm telling her is that, I don't have this all figured out, but these are just some thoughts I want to share with you. And then she'll probably ground me a lot and asking me a lot of questions, which is great. It helps me process things. Guys kind of share some thoughts. They don't mean, that's a stupid idea. Mm-hmm. That's totally disrespectful. We're not going to hang out very long if that's the case, So I think that's really important in a marriage.
Here's a question that just came to my mind. Isn't that exciting?
Oh, no.
So
if it's not on the paper, you can't ask it.
Very simple.
We have a contract. That's
Sorry, it just came to my mind. I'm sporadic. No, what am I? Spontaneous. There I am. Okay. So what about like when you're talking about something pretty serious and your kids are there? How do you feel if your wife disagrees with you on that subject or stuff in front of your kids? Would you prefer they wait? Is it okay if they timing? I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think you should have a way as a married couple. Hey, maybe we should discuss that later. Yeah. Because I think nothing sets a husband or man off more really quickly if you feel like you're being challenged in front of your kids, and we immediately kind of want to put up the gloves. Mm-hmm. Which is not a good thing, obviously, but I think that's you need to almost have that conversation ahead of time, right? Not in the moment, right? And say, hey, we can disagree, but let's do that in the right way.
No, Jill, it's a really good question, because I just went time traveling back to when I was the kid at the dinner table, hearing my mom and dad not some big disagreement, but disagree. And that's when I went, dissension. Now I can play her versus him, because they didn't seem one. They seemed two separate. And we never wanted that example for our children. So, backing away from a conversation that has the potential it's easy to assume that potential and to know. So it is. It's just a simple, very respectful way of saying, let's chat behind closed doors. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we're gonna move right on there. Okay, so I know you all are very spiritual men, and I really do. I'm not supposed to wave my microphone. And so I just wonder, what was the first thing, though, that attracted you to your wife? Was it her spirituality, something else, or did it have to do
Her
with
looks.
her looking good? And how important...
It was all about Jesus.
And
Amen.
how-
I agree.
How important is it to you that your wife looks nice and takes care of herself?
Okay, I'll.
This is you, John. You get this.
Loaded
one.
question. Spirituality is important. Absolutely. I'm not going to discount that whatsoever. But if I was to say to this group of people, especially the guys, that, spirituality is the most important thing, and attractiveness means absolutely nothing to me. Every guy in here would say you're a bald-faced liar and would stop listening and would walk out. No, it's extremely, being attractive is extremely important. Guys are visual creatures that are drawn to visual things, like a crow's drawn to a piece of tinfoil or something. So it's really important to us, because that's one of the things that make us tick. And guys are always going to reflect upon the woman that they fell in love with and married. That's kind of your reference point. And so I think it's important that women know that, after you're married, and this applies to guys as well, it's important not to let yourself go, to try to make yourself attractive, stay in shape, stay healthy, because that's really a sign that, you care about me. And letting yourself go is kind of, I just kind of care about myself.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to add to that? I'm looking at you, Adam.
Rock, paper, scissors, best out of three.
John is all alone right now.
Just I want to comment on what we've talked about before, and it's still super important to me. It is the effort that I watch her put forward is more attractive to me than the finished product. The effort that she makes, not just physically, the effort that she makes emotionally, the effort that she makes spiritually. To watch, my bride go through a transformation right in front of me is absolutely, to see her turn into the voice of reason from time to time, and to see the effort she's making. I think women would probably know, wives would, totally understand. You don't really have to try and trick us with the question, how do I look? We all know the answer, okay? And we got it down. But I think that effort is really important to men.
Yeah, I would just say every guy here is attracted to his wife. I mean, that, going back to the original question, you didn't first lay eyes on your wife, but man, she is so spiritual. I'm going to marry her. You're attracted to them. And so, and so back to what Jake said, it's not about, I need her to look like the model on the magazine cover, but, putting forward the effort. Yeah, I think that, again, that kind of motivates a man. It makes husbands kind of, energized, like, that I care when my wife is taking care of herself. It really shows almost a sign of respect to the man. And attractiveness even goes up. And so it's like, yeah, that's right. That's the woman I married. And we all get older, and we all change, just like Dr. John talked about as well. Guys, can also do the same thing and just kind of, I don't care anymore. I don't care how, just kind of, and it's not about, hey, trying to live up to some unrealistic expectation. It's about, I want my wife to take care of herself, because that shows me that she knows what's important to me as well, and that's longevity and health, absolutely. All that.
Okay, great. So let's get to the last question that all the men in the audience are waiting for, and I know you guys will just really become alive on this one. So The sex question. So why is sex so important to a man? In the book, His Needs, Her Needs, security is the top for the woman, and sex is for the man. Please help women understand why this is so important. And Adam, you get to start.
What was the question?
Tag.
I would say, is sex important to a man? I would say that, first of all, this is a big topic. And, I think all the questions that we've talked about up here are very relevant to any relationship. But this question really just pertains to a married couple. Mm-hmm. Because when you talk about this outside of marriage, I think it can get very ugly and very distorted. And as Pastor Bruce has, been preaching and teaching on marriage and the purpose of marriage being not about happiness, but about oneness. A man leaves his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and the two become one. And that also pertains to physical intimacy, sex, one flesh. And so, is it important to a man? Yeah, it is. It's more important than women realize. And I'll tell you a story about that. But it's something that God has wired in men to a point where it's something we think about. It's something that drives us. It's something that motivates us. And if you don't deal with it and can talk about it with your spouse, it can really derail your relationship in a really bad way, a really ugly way. So I had to learn that early on in my marriage. My wife and I got into some real insignificant fight, and I thought, I'm going to show her. I'm just going to cut her off. No sex for her at all. After about a month, I realized that was a very self-defeating tactic. And I was like, hey, that doesn't bother you? So, men and women prioritize this in such a different way. And women have needs. Our wives have needs. And, we're called in Ephesians to serve one another. Mm-hmm. And so men, need to know how to love their wives and how to serve those needs. And men have physical needs that can, again, if not dealt with in the right way, can be very difficult for men. And I'll say this: I was talking to a guy between services. Most men, at one point in their life, they go, "What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? What?" And so it is natural, it is normal for men to think about this and deal. And then again, learning how to deal with it, how to communicate with your wife is such an important topic.
I think with this we need a little disclaimer, because don't look at me that way, John. A disclaimer, because some women will say, we generally assume, and it is generally, that men have a greater desire or need, and there's always those women that'll say, no, it's not that way in a marriage. It's more for me and less for them. So I think that goes both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, rarely.
It does. I've had, yeah.
Everyone that applies to, raise your hand.
Okay.
No, I think for me, I see a lot of it in kind of with marriage therapy and things, and so it is extremely important. It's a oneness issue, and so there's a reason why the scripture talks about that. It really wants to close that gap, so the wife not withholding sex from the man, but for so long, because the longer that you go, the harder it becomes. And then all of the things, because we live in a very sexualized society right now, everything pops up. And if our drive is not we see all these things and we go run home to our wives and we're like, I love you. I'm choosing you over all of these other things. I'm showing honor to you. I love you, and I'm connecting with you. But if I run back and I'm stopped and it's cut off, then all these other things that led up to that are now attractive. And that's where God is saying you have to close the gap. And so there's this little bit of time that he allows, but you have to close that gap.
Okay, great. John?
Yeah, I can just sort of, kind of follow on that. There's this 72-hour rule. I mean, men are born with, this hormone called testosterone, and testosterone is what gives men their sexual drive. That's just the way it is. And it's kind of a cyclic thing. It peaks in the morning and kind of wavers, but, there's been things that have shown, about 72 hours is kind of the upper...
Or shorter.
Yeah, or shorter. But you want to, after 72 hours, it's kind of buck up, buttercup. Time's up. And to just to, follow on... yeah, follow the science. I love that. But just to follow up on your point, this is every man's Achilles heel. I mean, regardless. And Satan has a way to say, you know what, I know your Achilles heel. And if that need is not satisfied at home, just like with respect, it's going to get filled somewhere else. Hopefully not with another woman, could be with a love affair with your computer and after hours, but so it's really just hard to stress how really important this is, because this is Satan's way of destroying families. If he can destroy the family, he can destroy society, and that's the very first step, and every man, regardless of who you are, is susceptible to it.
Yeah, and I would follow up with that and say that it's not easy, I think, for men to talk about this with their spouses.
No.
But as a wife, if you give a man the space or talk to them, and you guys are on the same page about this topic, okay, well, now, again, that sex can be a beautiful thing, but again, like John says, the enemy wants to distort that, wants to destroy that in such a way that it will divide you. And now you're not one flesh anymore. Now you are, divided. And that's exactly the goal of the enemy. And so I think it's again, I've seen this in married couples. I've been married a short time, long time, doesn't matter. If you cannot communicate with your spouse about this topic, you got to find a way, because I can tell your husband is probably struggling with that. There's no question.
Now, as a newlywed on the panel, we're not struggling with any of that communication at all. In fact, I think we're pretty great at it. But there's something that we talked earlier about, that staying connected. Now, the epicenter of Alicia and I's relationship is our friendship, because we know that will last the tests of time. And so, the sex question, I know it seems so taboo, and it seems, like that's one of the things, well, we don't even want to say the word. No. That's something that surrounds the epicenter of your relationship. That intimacy, communication, trust, goals. And when you are on the same page with your wife or with your husband, this magnifies and intensifies all of those really critical things that surround the friendship that you are building. And that, right, you can't take sex and put sex as the epicenter. Sex will come and go, but that friendship will stay the same. And we want something. We want this connection that we're building. It's that connection where you think about, why do I need these things magnified? Because of what John and what Adam said. Our enemy is always thinking of ways to derail not only our marriage, right, but our family as well. And so, again, an important topic, yeah.
So I think a lot of women would say, and I think women are so busy today, busier than ever before in times, in a degree, but women just say, well, I'm just so tired, and I've got this and that. And like when we had our children, they were involved in one sport, and we would do that and whatever, but we had time for each other, and we realized that, the biblical priorities that we set before we were even married, that God would be first, our spouse second, our children, and then our job / ministry. And I think so many times now we're so busy and involved in so many things, and those things seem to take a priority, and then there isn't as much time, how do you feel about...
Time to do what?
How do you feel about...
what was the question
that
again?
Sex gets put on the back burner.
You know, I hate being put on the back burner. I really do. I hate it because in therapy, I see this a lot when marriages are struggling and marriages have just huge conflicts. And a lot of those conflicts stem from our priorities not being correct. And so one of the things that we established in our household is we have 3 children and a teenager, and she's involved in a lot of different things, but we always say you are involved in one thing at a time. And so one of that is because my priority is God and then my spouse. And so if it stresses my wife out running you all over the place, you can't do that because I'm protecting her from being stressed out. And so I want you to be involved in things, but definitely not at the expense of our relationship.
Right. And I think it actually gives children way more security when they see it done that way. You think, oh, my kids are going to feel like they're on the back burner or something. I think kids are way more secure when the parents put each other first. When he would come home from church, I'd tell the kids, he's mine the first half an hour. You go do what you want, play, then we'll all do something together. But we really put priority. I knew he would want to unwind. I would want to hear about his day. And so I don't think it hurts the children in any way. I think it gives them more security. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it's about that oneness, right? That's where it starts, is that oneness. And to maintain that oneness every day is going to take effort. There was an article I read about a child psychologist that had talked to 10 different couples and asked them one question: who's the most important person in your family? And these were 10 couples that served every kind of generation that you could think of, and the answer that all 10 gave was our children. And they were challenged back with a lot of questions. Okay, so what knowledge do your children possess that would ever elevate them to be the most important people in the family? You know, what experience, the qualities of life. You know, they were kind of educated by this question to start to understand that oneness. You two are the most important people in your family, right? We start there, and then we've got a teammate that we can just accomplish anything with, meaning we can tackle children, we can tackle jobs, we can tackle all these things. But again, there's our enemy at play. Our enemy saying, I'm too stressed out, so we're not going to have sex. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I've got other projects. I've got other things I'm doing. Those are all those very gently, that trickery comes into our brain and it comes into play. And so we got to be aware of those things.
What I think we've seen for years in ministry and in counseling and even in family members is that if the kids are put first and their wife is all around doing everything for the kids, and all of a sudden the kids are gone, the wife is like, now what? And we've seen more and more relationships split over that. Right, Joe?
Absolutely. I see it all the time. And it's not that they are in jeopardy when their priorities are not straight and not in order, that the other one is not the priority. And they tell you that, more so the women will tell you that. I don't feel like I'm important in his world anymore, right? And so it's back and forth though. But one of the things for us is we have these consistent date nights that are really awesome for us. And we know that we set the priority in our household when my middle daughter said, it's good for their relationship that they go out. And she's 10, and I'm like, all right.
John, you want to finish us up here?
Well, I was just gonna add on to that. I think, what are you modeling for your children, right? Is a big deal as well. And it's so easy to get this out of balance, and it happens. Nobody's perfect at this. Marriages, you'll get this out of balance, and the hope is that as a Christ-centered marriage, you come back to that. That solid ground and put Christ first. We did a Bible study in our home group years ago called From Craig Rochelle Till This Day Forward, and it just talked about how your spouse is to be number 2. And just focusing, and the culture says, no, your spouse is supposed to be number 1. No, put God first, put your spouse number 2. It is not easy for moms to prioritize, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn here, to prioritize their husband over their children. That is a very difficult thing, and I get it, because it's a part of them. That's an extension of them, and so trust me, husbands, fathers, we love our children, but we will die for our wives. Yeah. And so there's a difference. Women, moms want to protect their kids. Men want to die for their wives. There's a difference. And so as we kind of navigate through, I think, the teeter-totter and the out-of-balanceness of busyness of life, I think it's one of those things in the priority to get, when you get the 1 and the 2 and the 3 out of whack, everything just gets distorted. And so, again, being able to communicate and have that oneness and that recentering your marriage back on what's important and who God is and who Christ is, and then who your spouse is, I think is critical. And men want intimacy. They just have a different way of looking at intimacy than women. Amen. Not wrong, just different.
John, you want to bring this home?
Sure. I'll bring it home. Simple, practical application. I think, guys being practical dudes, they have a toolbox that's got, 2 things in it. It's got some baling wire and it's got some duct tape. You can pretty much fix anything in the world. In the marriage world, I think women only need like 1 card in their toolbox. I think if you play the sex card most of the time, you can fix almost any problem in a marriage. So anyway, or at least a good start.
And you took us home. Thank you.
There you go.
Give him a good hand. So I hope that you enjoyed our panel discussion. I think the guys did a good job. I think they were singing the same song, but 4 different verses, and I think that's helpful for everyone hearing that it's not just coming from the pastor, but to men in general. So I hope that will helpful. The ladies, again, this book will be an encouragement to the wives to grab and to read. Next week on the 4 rules of communication, and I'll help you, I believe, from Scripture to see what God says are the priorities for carrying on not just talk, but a conversation, and that will be meaningful. So thanks so much for being here. Let's stand and sing our dismissal song. Hello, I'm Pastor Bruce Spear from Cross Point Church. I want to thank you for tuning in and watching one of our messages. We do hope that the teaching of the Word of God will impact your life and cause you to want to walk closer to the Lord Jesus. I hope that you will also consider supporting the Cross Point ministry so that we can do more for the cause of Christ. If you have questions about your spiritual walk, especially about how to invite Jesus into your life, I hope